Okay. Good morning, dear students. Welcome back to another class of second year zoology. And welcome to this online webinar classes provided by Telangana State Residential Educational Institutions Society. Dear students, in the last class, we have started first chapter, that is breathing and exchange of gases. We have completed two parts of it, and this is the third part of that lesson. Okay, and by this class, we are going to end this chapter. Let's see what we are going to learn from this chapter. What we are going to learn? We are going to learn about the transport of oxygen in the cellular level and transport of carbon dioxide from tissues to the alveoli. And we will be learning about oxygen dissociation curve. And there are two effects that we need to learn in the exchange of gases, that is Bohr and Haldane effect. We will also learn about the transport of carbon dioxide. In that, there is an important concept called chloride shift. That is also we are going to learn. And we learn about respiratory regulatory movements and respiratory disorders. These are the points, these are the concepts that we are going to learn from this chapter. Okay, dear students, let's start this class. First of all, what are the components present in the blood? We must know this because oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged, and oxygen we breathe in and carbon dioxide we keep outside, isn't it? But for the transport of oxygen, there is a need of a carrier, isn't it? So in the body, whatever the oxygen we take with the help of our lungs, it should reach to each and every cell. And to reach to the cellular level, there must be a carrier. So oxygen is also carried with the help of some carrier, and carbon dioxide also carried with a carrier. Here, the carrier of oxygen and carrier of carbon dioxide is the blood. Okay, so in the blood there are components. Okay, what are the main components existing in the blood? You have studied this in your first year. The blood contain plasma, isn't it? And and also contains the blood cells. Different blood cells are there, and plasma is there. Plasma is a liquid part of the blood, and cells are solid parts. And solid, these cells are again three types of cells are located in them. First is RBC, which is red blood cells. Second, WBC, which are also called as leukocytes, and thrombocytes, which are also called platelets. So these are the components of the blood. Why am I saying this? Because this is the introduction that we need to learn, because for the transport of carbon dioxide and oxygen, oxygen is carried with the help of a hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a respiratory pigment present in the RBC, red blood cells. Because of the hemoglobin, the blood appears in red color. Okay, and plasma is important for the transport of carbon dioxide, right? That is why I'm stressing this plasma and red blood cells. Carbon dioxide also enters into the red blood cell also, but most part of the carbon dioxide is carried with the help of plasma, whereas most of the oxygen is carried with the help of a hemoglobin, which is present in the RBC. So RBC is a carrier of carrier of oxygen. Okay, so let's see what we are going to learn in the exchange of gases. How actually the transport of oxygen take place? Oxygen is transported with the help of plasma and also RBC, and with the help of plasma it is only 3%. Okay, and it is most around 97% of oxygen is transported with the help of RBC. O2 is transported by RBC. Each hemoglobin, just now I said it's a respiratory pigment. Each hemoglobin carries 4 molecules of oxygen with pressure of oxygen. Okay, so the mixing of oxygen to the hemoglobin is called as oxygenation. Okay, oxygenation. So 97%, around 97% of the oxygen is transported with the help of hemoglobin present in the RBC. Here you can see each hemoglobin molecule, at the down there is an equation. Each hemoglobin carries 4 molecules of oxygen. So HbO2 and 4. Okay, so this is the equation of hemoglobin oxygenation. Okay, let's learn further. This is the transport of oxygen that we discussed. Let's see the oxygen dissociation curve. Before going to learn about this oxygen dissociation curve, we must understand the affinity, the word called affinity. Association and dissociation. Here oxygen association means the mixing of oxygen with the hemoglobin. Okay, that's called oxygen association. Here oxygen dissociation means the division of oxyhemoglobin into oxygen and hemoglobin. So oxygen is getting away from the hemoglobin. That's called oxygen dissociation. Oxygen is getting dissociated with the hemoglobin. Okay, so at what conditions oxygen binds with the hemoglobin, and at what condition oxygen dissociates with the hemoglobin? Okay, these are the two situations that we need to learn. What are the favorable situations and unfavorable situation? According to the favorable and unfavorable situation of saturation of oxygen, the oxygen dissociation curve is made. Okay, we will see with the help of graphical representation what are the favorable conditions for the oxyhemoglobin formation. Dear students, here oxyhemoglobin means nothing but the hemoglobin which is associated with the oxygen. Hope I am clear. Okay, let me explain you it further. See the favorable conditions first. The low carbon dioxide percentage and temperature and high amount of partial pressure of oxygen and pH are favorable to formation of oxyhemoglobin. Let me repeat again. For the oxyhemoglobin formation, for oxygen to bind hemoglobin, there must be low partial pressure of carbon dioxide and low temperature, and high amount of oxygen should be there. That means high partial pressure of oxygen and also high pH. These are the conditions for the oxyhemoglobin formation. Let's see what are the dissociation rules. But to dissociate from the oxygen, from the hemoglobin, we need another kind of situations like high carbon dioxide, high partial pressure of carbon dioxide and high temperature, and low amount of partial pressure of oxygen and low pH. These are the favorable conditions for dissociation of oxygen from hemoglobin. Okay, from oxyhemoglobin. So hope you have understood this. Let me repeat again. Partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low and temperature is low, and high partial pressure of oxygen and pH leads to the formation of oxyhemoglobin, whereas high partial pressure of carbon dioxide and high temperature and low partial pressure of oxygen and pH leads to the dissociation of oxygen from oxyhemoglobin. Okay, so don't confuse with it. Read once and say twice again, then you can understand it easily. In the oxygen dissociation curve, what we see under these conditions, under the above conditions, oxygen dissociation curve shifts away from y-axis to the right side. You can see away from y-axis to the y-axis. Okay, so here you can see in the picture the relation between temperature and the oxygen dissociation. Whenever the temperature is increasing, you can see whenever temperature is increasing, suppose here you can see there is 10 degrees Celsius, 20 degrees Celsius, 38 degrees Celsius, and 43 degrees Celsius. In the y-axis, we have taken the saturation of hemoglobin. That means oxyhemoglobin formation. In the x-axis, we have taken partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, so when the temperature is less, you can see when the temperature is low, the oxygen is bind a lot. That means the curve is shifting to the towards the y-axis. You can see here when the temperature is 10 degrees, when temperature is 20 degrees, when temperature is low, the saturation of oxygen is high. That means oxyhemoglobin formation is high. When the temperature is getting increased, slowly the oxygen is dissociating. Okay, oxygen is dissociating. So here you can see this is 70%, 80%, and 100%. When the temperature is low, the oxygen binding is more. When the temperature is high, the oxygen binding is less. Hope you have understood. Let's see another graph for your better understanding. See here the oxygen dissociation curve. This is the percentage of saturation. So high hemoglobin, see high hemoglobin affinity, shift left side. You can see here this is the one shift and this is the another shift which is there, and at low carbon dioxide and high pH and low temperature, it is shifting towards the Y. Okay, that means the oxygen saturation is high, oxyhemoglobin formation is high, but where you can see the high carbon dioxide and low pH and high temperature, at these conditions the the line will be shifting to away from the y-axis. That means the oxyhemoglobin formation is less. This is the dissociation and this is the association. Hope you are understanding. So altogether it makes a sigmoid curve. Okay, so this is about the oxygen dissociation curve. Let me repeat it again for your understanding. You can see here the conditions which are favorable for the oxygen formation, oxygen saturation is low carbon dioxide, high pH and low temperature. In these conditions, oxyhemoglobin formation is high, and under these conditions which are high CO2 concentration and low pH and high temperature, in these conditions the oxygen saturation is less, means oxygen dissociating. So these are the three things you must remember: high partial pressure of carbon dioxide, low pH and higher temperature leads to the dissociation of oxygen from the hemoglobin. Okay, let's see the transport of carbon dioxide. And before learning about that, let's see what is the Bohr and Haldane effect. Let's first learn about the Bohr effect. Scientist Bohr, what he said, the effect of carbon dioxide and H plus concentration. Just now we have seen high partial pressure of carbon dioxide leads to the dissociation of the oxygen, isn't it? So carbon dioxide and pH, H plus concentration is nothing but the pH. The effect of carbon dioxide and pH on the oxygen affinity of hemoglobin is called Bohr effect, isn't it? Just now we have learned under some conditions the high pressure of carbon dioxide leading to the dissociation. Affinity means the binding capacity. Okay, familiarity, binding capacity can be referred to as affinity here. An increase in carbon dioxide, partial pressure of carbon dioxide, and decrease of pH in blood leads to the reduction of O2 affinity with hemoglobin. When the affinity is reduced, the dissociation takes place. Okay, hope you are understanding. When the affinity is reduced, the dissociation takes place under the increased partial pressure of carbon dioxide and decrease of pH leads to the reduction of the affinity. Okay, that means leading to the dissociation. Here in the picture also you can see under high carbon dioxide. Now you can see under high carbon dioxide it is dissociated, right? Under low carbon dioxide, the green line which is associated. This, so green line indicates the high affinity of oxygen, and orange line indicates the low affinity with the oxygen. Okay, let's see what is the Haldane effect. Simply you remember this, that the effect of carbon dioxide and pH on the oxygen affinity is called Bohr effect. Right? Let's learn about the Haldane effect. The Haldane effect says that the effect of oxygen concentration on the affinity of carbon dioxide with hemoglobin is called as Haldane effect, just opposite to the uh, Bohr effect. There the carbon dioxide effect of carbon dioxide on oxygen of association. Here the effect of oxygen on the affinity of carbon dioxide with hemoglobin is called Haldane effect. Presence of oxygen in blood reduces the intake of carbon dioxide by breaking the CO2 affinity with hemoglobin. Okay, so this is the Bohr and Haldane effects. You can read them again and again, you will understand it very clearly. Dear students, let's learn about the transport of carbon dioxide. What is transport of carbon dioxide? However, the oxygen is transported in the same way, carbon dioxide also gets transported. Okay, but it transported in three means. First is in the dissolved state. That means it dissolves and it is only 7%. That is CO2 plus H2O. That means carbon dioxide is mixed with the water and converted into H2CO3. Right? And second way is as carbamino compounds. Okay, it is around 20 to 25%. You can see here. First is the dissolved state. That means carbon dioxide is dissolving in the water and transported in the form of H2CO3. And as carbamino compounds here, CO2, that means carbon dioxide combined with amino group of hemoglobin. Okay, and forms carbamino hemoglobin. So hemoglobin has function to form an oxyhemoglobin and carbamino hemoglobin. Hemoglobin means binding with carbon dioxide, and oxyhemoglobin means binding with the oxygen. Just now we have learned that how it binds with the oxygen. Hemoglobin uh, binds with four molecules of oxygen, isn't it? So here carbon dioxide also binds with the oxygen. Let's see, hemoglobin and NH3 is nothing but the amine group of hemoglobin, and when it bind with carbon dioxide, carbamino hemoglobin is formed, Hb NHCOO plus H plus. Okay? This is the carbamino hemoglobin. Binding, this binding is related to partial pressure of carbon dioxide and oxygen. According to the pressures of oxygen carbon dioxide, these bindings will take place. Okay, dear students, let's see. If partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high, let me repeat again. If the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high and partial pressure of oxygen is less, there will be more binding of carbon dioxide. Okay, there will be more formation of carbamino compounds. If the partial pressure of oxygen is less, so partial pressure of oxygen is high and partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low, that leads to the less dissociation. Okay, let me also explain you what is meant by partial pressure. Most of the times I'm using this word partial pressure. It is the pressure of an individual gas in a mixture of gases. Okay? That's called partial pressure of its gas. Suppose environment have different kinds of gases, and in the different kinds of gases there is oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, different gases. So the pressure of one particular gas, that if you can take oxygen as an example, pressure of oxygen and mixture of gases is called as partial pressure of oxygen. Hope you have understanding. Same pressure is there inside the body and outside the body, but the pressure will be varied from inside to outside. This pressure imbalances makes the breathing possible. These pressure imbalances makes this transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide possible. Hope you are able to understand it. Let's see the next slide. In this, we will learn the third way of transport of carbon dioxide. Transport of carbon dioxide around 70%. Okay, 70% of the carbon dioxide is transported in the form of bicarbonates. Okay, transported through plasma as bicarbonate. There in the previous slide, we have learned that it is transported with the help of dissolved state, with the help of water, and in the form of carbamino hemoglobin. That means binding with hemoglobin of RBC. So with the help of RBC, and through plasma also it is transported in the form of bicarbonate, HCO3. At the alveoli, HCO3 enters the RBC and converts into H2CO3. Before learning this, let's see the diagram beside. Here you can see this is the cell of individual body. Okay, so by the process of respiration, with the process of cellular respiration, they produce CO2, and CO2 comes into the plasma, and CO2 enters the RBC. The biconcave round oval shape that you are able to see here is the RBC, and this is the blood vessel. Okay, so carbon dioxide produced by cells entering the RBC, and it mixes with the H2O, right? It forms H2CO3. Okay, H2CO3. Some amount of carbon dioxide is transported in the form of carbamino compounds, isn't it? And this H2CO3 further divides into HCO3 plus H plus. Okay, so the enzyme which is required in these at these conditions is carbonic anhydrase. Remember, carbon dioxide is converting into H2CO3 and getting divided into HCO3 plus H plus with the help of an enzyme called carbonic anhydrase. So this HCO3 which is divided comes out of the RBC, okay, through RBC membrane. So this is the membrane which you are able to see. So HCO3 which is formed is getting away from the RBC, coming out of the RBC. At the same time, for the effective ionic balance, the Cl minus ions are getting inside. Okay, so see here, so when HCO3 molecules are going out of the membrane of RBC, for the maintenance of ionic balance, Cl minus ions are getting inside. So Cl minus ions are shifting from plasma to the RBC. Let me repeat. Cl minus ions are shifting from plasma to the RBC by the removal of HCO3 outside. So this shift from the plasma to the RBC of Cl minus ions is called as chloride shift. Okay, here that's what I told here. Chloride shift means the exchange of Cl minus ions and HCO3 minus ions through membrane of RBC. Okay, for ionic balance is called as chloride shift. That is what happening here. Let me explain you again. This is a little tricky concept. You can see for the transport of carbon dioxide, it is transported in the plasma in the form of bicarbonate, isn't it? So to transport as a bicarbonate, first of all, it should convert into bicarbonate. Carbon dioxide convert into bicarbonate in the RBC by the carbonic anhydrase. Here you can see H2CO3 divides into HCO3 plus H plus. So this HCO3 which is formed in the RBC is coming out of the RBC to the plasma, and for this removal there is a requirement of intake of chloride. So chloride from the plasma rushing inside of the RBC. So this exchange of Cl minus into the RBC and HCO3 outside of the out to the plasma is called as the chloride shift. Okay. Finally, the chloride ions are shifting into the RBC. Hope you are getting understood. Let's go to the next slide. Regulation of respiratory movements. Why do we need the respiratory movements? Sometimes whenever we run, what happens? Our breathing rate will increase. We respire more times. Is it not? So why we respire more times? Because our body requires more oxygen, our body requires more energy. At this time there will be the increase in the breathing pattern, and there will be the increase in the heartbeat also. Okay, so these respiratory movements are basically under the control of neural system. Neural system means, it is a nervous system. So there are centers which are there in the brain. These are respiratory rhythm center. First one, respiratory rhythm center, pneumotoxic center, and chemosensitive area. These are the three areas uh, where the control or the regulation of respiratory movements take place. Let's see the one by one. The respiratory rhythm center. What it does? It controls the rhythm of the breathing. Okay, respiratory rhythm will be maintained. It is present in the part called medulla oblongata of the brain. Next, pneumotoxic center. You see, pneumotoxic center means it is present in the pons spheruli, and it is most important for the control of respiratory rate and inspiration. Okay, so it controls the breathing pattern. Pneumotoxic center. Next, chemosensitive area, and the receptors at aortic arches and carotid artery. Okay, carotid artery recognize the changes in the oxygen and pH concentration, oxygen H plus concentration, and send the necessary signals to the pneumotoxic center and rhythm center. So the chemosensitive area is most important area which passes the signals to the pneumotoxic center and the respiratory rhythm center. Suppose what it does, suppose if the carbon dioxide percentage in the body is very less, it is firstly identified by the receptors at the aortic arches. Aortic arches emerges from the heart, isn't it? Aortic arches are there in the heart. There are three kinds of arches. So these arches contain receptors, and receptors they diagnose, they identify the changes in the percentage of carbon dioxide and the pH, and send the necessary signals to the respiratory rhythm center and pneumotoxic center. These two centers start regulating the movement. If it requires more breathing, the breathing rate will increase. If they require less, then the respiratory movement or the breathing pattern will be decreased. Hope you are able to understand. Remember these two centers, respiratory rhythm center and pneumotoxic center. Remember these receptors also. It's a chemosensitive area present in the aortic arches of the heart. Okay, dear students, let's learn the next slide. Disorders of respiratory system. There are many diseases related to respiratory system. Most of the time we say because of the pollution, our lungs get affected, because of smoking, tobacco, drugs, and all this alcohol. Because of all this and the pollution, traffic, carbon monoxide and sulfur dioxide. These are the gases which affects the respiratory system, isn't it? So what are the actual disorders which are most dangerous in the for the respiratory system? Let's see. First one is asthma. You identify this. You will you will see even in generally that people usually have this asthma and they use artificial inhalers, isn't it? So asthma causes by various reasons. There is no one particular reason for it. Asthma is caused by the pollution also, and it is a hereditary disease as well. Okay, so mostly see asthma means the difficulty in breathing caused due to inflammation of bronchi and bronchioles. Okay, bronchi and bronchioles are located in the respiratory system. They are the tubular structures present. Here there is a bronchi and bronchioles are making the branches. Branches of bronchi are called bronchioles. So these are the main important parts of the passage of air. So if they get inflamed, the breathing will become less because the passage of the passage of bronchi will be less. When the passage is less, when the lumen is reduced, the breathing will become so difficult. That's why asthma people feel difficulty in breathing, isn't it? Next is emphysema. Emphysema is a disorder uh, in which the alveolar walls are completely damaged. It is a major cause of this emphysema is the smoking. Okay, so alveoli, where these alveolar sacs are located, they are the functional and structural units of lungs. So alveoli is the place where the exchange of gases take place. Because of this um, smoking, because of the harmful gases, the alveoli will be surrounded by a layer of tar, okay, a layer of chemicals which makes the alveolar walls damaged. When the alveoli walls are damaged, the walls contain blood vessels also. So the exchange of gases will decrease. When the exchange of gases decrease, oxygen is less supplied to the body. When oxygen is supplied less to the body, we will produce less energy because oxygen is the prime aspect, prime thing which releases the energy, isn't it? So energy will less. So eventually the person will get less energy, body parts stop functioning automatically, so it leads to death. So emphysema is caused mainly because of the smoking. Okay, if your neighbors or if your friends or if your parents has this smoking habit, try to stop them. Okay, next see bronchitis. Itis means nothing but inflammation. That means getting inflamed. Okay, uh, inflammation of bronchi causes and decrease of diameter of bronchi. Bronchi diameter gets reduced. So when the lumen is reduced, automatically amount of air which passes through it will also be reduced. Let's see the pneumonia. Pneumonia is caused due to the bacteria called Streptococcus pneumoniae. Okay, it's a bacterial disease and also some other pathogens. There are vaccines for the pneumonia as well. Okay, it also respiratory disorders and it makes the difficult breathing difficulty. Next, the above all are considered as COPDs. You can see COPD. That means chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases. Chronic means the long term. Okay, chronic obstructive. Obstructive means they are stopping. What it is stopping? It is stopping the passage of air. Pulmonary diseases. Chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases. Hope you have understood. So here you can see COPD, the representation COPD because of the chronic bronchitis, emphysema, and asthma. They are the diseases of respiratory system. Let's see some of the occupational disorders of respiratory system. Occupational disorders means because of working in some factories, some specialized factories, people get the disorders or diseases. Let's see what are those diseases. These are caused due to exposure of the body to the harmful substances from certain industries, especially those involving grinding or stone brick breaking. Long-term exposure of the body to such substances give rise to inflammation of respiratory passage and lungs, which leads to the several disorders. Understood? So because of certain industries which are involved in grinding and all this, so there you find a lot of dust released in industries. If the person is working there, he has to work at least for 8 hours there. When 8 hours he spend in such area, automatically the dust particles which are there in the air goes into the body, and these dust particles make the several disorders. It is inevitable for them, and let's see what are the disorders they get. Asbestos. Asbestos is caused due to asbestos industry dust. Okay. Silicosis is caused because of the silica dust from mining and quarries. Okay. Mining means, excavation of this coal and everything. Next, siderosis means the iron particles in tissues leads to hemosiderosis, so which leads to alveolar hemorrhage, internal bleeding. Alveoli gets damaged, so the bleeding happens. And hyperferemia and pneumoconiosis, these are the disorders. Hyperferemia means the more amount of the increase of the iron in the blood is called hyperferemia. Next, black lung disease. Black lung disease is due to the coal dust. Okay? The coal dust in the mining. While they are mining under the ground, when they are going under it, automatically when they have to break the coal. When they break, automatically these carbon particles flow in the air, and that goes into the body. So that's why in the mining industry and in these industries, every month they give some jaggery to them, because jaggery cleans the respiratory pathway. If any dust particles are there, it absorbs. Okay? So it's better to eat jaggery when you go into the polluted area. Okay? These are the main respiratory disorders: asbestos, silicosis, siderosis, and black lung disease. Let's recapitulate what we have learned, and let's see some of the assignments also. In this class, we have studied about transport of oxygen and transport of carbon dioxide and oxygen dissociation curve, Bohr effect and Haldane effect, and also the chloride shift. We also learn about respiratory regulatory movements and occupational disorders. Today's assignment is, here I have given, they explain the oxygen dissociation curve, explain oxygen dissociation curve, and third question is explain Bohr and Haldane. These are the homeworks, assignments for you. Write it down, maintain a separate notes for zoology, for the running notes and also for the assignments. Okay, and you have to show these to your respective JLs in the school. Okay, thank you, dear students. This is Raj Kumar signing out. Thank you.